Welcome to the Impact Roadmap, a podcast designed to give you the practical, concrete steps to grow your nonprofit or future-forward business in a sustainable way. I'm your host, Joey Goon. Let's get into the episode. All right, friends. Today I have the unique privilege and the honor of interviewing Maryanne Dersch on the Impact Roadmap. And Maryanne is a nonprofit coach, consultant, author, and podcaster. And Maryanne, your bio is that you help and I love this, you help nonprofit leaders master the art of influence so they can ask for more money without feeling rejected or pushy. And your effervescent badassery challenges people to be more influential in work and life. That is a badass bio, Maryanne.
Thank you. I love it.
Let's talk a little bit about, I want to get into influence because I know that that's something that is really important to you, is mastering the art of communication and influence. But before we go there, tell us a little bit about yourself. What does a day in the life of Maryanne Dersch look like?
Well, that's the fun thing about being me, is that there's no day that looks like another one. I pretty much, one of the things I've learned is, and I'm working on right now, is there's having enough structure to get things done, but then also being able to kind of be flexible in the moment. I have 3 kids. All my kids have, they're all adopted out of foster care. They all have different challenges, and, just who knows what's going to come up on any given day. So that's the thing about me. There's really nothing routine, which I like. And I appreciate that.
I'm sure nonprofits appreciate that too, because I know we'll dive into this more as we unpack kind of overall, nonprofit strategy and growing a nonprofit. But I think having a non-routine life is something that you just have to get used to if you're trying to scale a nonprofit.
Yeah. And you're right. I think there's a balance. There's some things that we want to keep structure for, and then there's other ways. I tried time blocking once and almost made me crazy because it never ever worked out the way I intended. And then it also always made me feel bad, okay, what if I have certain things that are kind of structured in, and then other things I have to get this done. And when it's a good time to do it, I will do it. And that's kind of worked for me. There's some things one of the things I really do is I create agreements with myself around when I work. So, I don't work Monday morning. I don't work Friday afternoon unless hey, I'm going to be speaking next Friday at Drury University. Okay, I will be working on Friday. But typically I don't work Monday morning or Friday afternoon. And I really hold that space. Tonight's Tuesday, it's trivia night. I always go to trivia night. So there's certain things that I keep in place, and then everything else I can kind of let go. That way I can be responsive if I need to, but also have the stuff done that I need to take care of.
Sure. No, I love that. It's interesting you bring that up. One of my friends asked me the other day if I time block, and I was like, yeah, I used to try. And then, sort of similar story to you, but I digress. That's a story for a different
well,
day.
I think because it's so interesting, because with the group I'm a part of and a group I coach, we spent the whole last month of September talking about time and how we use our time. And for some people, they love having things scheduled out like that. And for other people, it just doesn't work. So I think it's finding what works with your life, what feels good and aligned and energy rich to you. And if it's time blocking, do it. But the system should love you, not you shouldn't have to work to like a system,
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I love that idea. Maryanne, you have, there's so much that we can talk about today. And it's really interesting how we came to know each other. I think I went on Google and I searched most influential nonprofit podcasters, and you were the first name that populated, and you happened to be in my backyard. And I reached out to you. I had this I researched you, and I had that personal video message that I sent to you, which I think is a ninja hack for a lot of nonprofit organizations and really people that are trying to grow businesses. Send personal video message as opposed to just copy, text rich emails. And you immediately replied to that video message. And then later on that week, you happened to be at a conference with mutual friends. And I don't know, it's just the power of community and the power of network equity is just incredible.
I know, I told my friend about the message. And he was like, I know that guy. And then we figured out.
and you know, I was on friends. I know it's unreal. And I was on your podcast a couple weeks ago, and I left feeling super inspired and motivated. And I dove more deeply into you. I watched one of your consulting classes, and that was sent to me via email. Which, by the way, we can talk about this later in the interview. But I think that the emails that you send out are so valuable. They're so rich with resources.
Thank you.
Anyway, I now have the unique privilege and the opportunity of the tables being turned and me asking the questions, which is I just have so many questions for you. So I think we should just let's just dive in. You have 30 years of experience. Before you became a coach, consultant, and author, you were sort of in the trenches trying to grow various nonprofits. What is there one profound learning lesson that has stuck with you that you're maybe there's one thing that you can point back to that was such a remarkable piece of insight or knowledge or wisdom that is still with you today, that you learned from all of those, that the 30-year rich history in helping run nonprofits?
Yes. Okay. So this is true story. I had this therapist, and I was in her office, and I was talking about how I was getting a little blowback from some friends who were like, Maryanne, you're always on camera. You always have a microphone. Like my friend was like, I just worry you're, narcissistic or something. I'm like, what? Anyway, when somebody says something like that and you can feel it in your body, like your eyes, you can feel the water, your heart pounds, or your stomach, does a leap. And that's how I felt. And I didn't know what to do with this bit of feedback at the time.
Them calling you a narcissist for
you're always hogging the spotlight, blah, blah. I'm like, what? So I said to her, and she said, well, that's criticism, and praise and criticism are the same thing. And I was like, what? She's like, well, praise and criticism, they're just other people's opinions about you. And I was like, how can it be the same thing? Because one feels so good and one feels so bad. And she said, a whole person doesn't need praise to validate themselves and doesn't let criticism derail them, because they know who they are and they understand their own value. And I was like, whoa. And in this moment, this is the divine download. In this moment, what came through for me is, oh my gosh, I am overly dependent on praise and terrified of criticism. And all my clients are too, right? Because in the nonprofit world, we're nonprofit, we're defined by what we aren't, not what we are. We don't make a profit in a society that values profit as an indicator of the health of a business. So you already feel like you're coming down, right? We already feel like we're less than. So we pretend to be more than so that we can be equal, right? So does that make sense? So
that makes total sense.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm overly dependent on praise and terrified of criticism. And that's my clients are as well. And what people want is authenticity. They want transparency and vulnerability. And the more that you can become authentic, transparent, and vulnerable, the more you will attach people to you. And so really, instead of you or me creating these shiny personas, show people the real story. And the same thing with the organizations that I marketed with. Instead of making everything look perfect and pretty, give people the truth. People want authenticity. We're hungry for it. Because we see it so little. When we find it, we're so entranced by it. And that's in that moment, I had been wanting to write a book for a long time. I wasn't really sure how to organize my thinking. In that moment, that's when Courageous Communication was born. That's when, my book and all of those things, from that one moment when I realized, oh my gosh, we feel like we're less than, so we have to pretend like we're more than, but really what we want are real relationships. And what I learned over 30 years, which God, I feel anyway, I mean, it's I'm 56. So it's probably not 30 years, probably 25. when we what we wanted, I think a lot of times what we wanted was a brand or a message to make us feel better about ourselves. Like, I want the external to boost the internal, but what's really true is the internal. So my work has become more and more about not external, like because if we can't communicate effectively internally, we can't do it externally. So my work has become more like less about messaging and marketing, which I still do, but more about internal personal development and leadership and valuing myself and who I am and being able to manage praise and criticism and all that. And then taking that then and saying, okay, from this place of confidence, of possibility, of value, we create our marketing messages from that instead of wanting the message and the brand to make us feel valuable. Does that make sense? So, yeah. So my work has become especially the last 3 or 4 years, much more around personal leadership development and growth, so that can then be translated into a communication message and brand.
Maryanne, you are speaking to my soul, sister. Oh my God, this is so healing. You are seriously resonating on so many levels. This is absolutely beautiful. I wrote down, give up being impressive or perfect for being authentic. Because you're right, we all feel like we have to impress upon others and talk about all these incredible things that we're doing in the world because we have such a need to feel significant, like our contributions are making a difference. But the reality is people just want to connect with another vulnerable, open, authentic human being.
Yep. The most vulnerable person in the room is the most influential.
It's so amazing.
It's true. And the more open you can be, the more powerful you become. And the more people will trust you. And that's the trust is the basis of any relationship. Now, I had a foundation director say to me once, those shiny brochures that you make, like, we want to get past those to the real story. And I said, what I want for you is for that brochure to share a real story that makes you want to learn more real stories, right? It's like sometimes they look at marketing like donors, foundations, they want something that they have to get through, like an Instagram filter, to get to the real truth, when actually the most powerful marketing is the one that is the real, right? I'm sharing the real truth, and to trust people that they can handle the truth. Because one of the things that I was always taught is donors will never understand. You have to simplify it because they'll never, no, they're people, they will understand. If you explain it to them, they will understand, give them a chance. So the more vulnerable, authentic, and transparent you can be, the more people will gravitate towards you. And that's been my experience, and I'm sure it is yours.
I always believe, and this is a quote from Michael Singer out of his book, The Untethered Soul, which is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And he says, when the mind is still, the soul speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is the natural state of the body when the mind shuts up.
Yep.
And so many of us are so focused on doing and trying, that we just have this internal mental chatter, those limiting self-beliefs that says we're not good enough.
The monkey mind.
The monkey mind. It's so true. So Maryanne, you just brought up a really great point, and I want to dive into that because I think it's relevant and topical, especially for us, because we are an event production and video production company helping nonprofits produce incredible experiences that connect people and unite hearts so they can generate more generosity and do more work in the world that matters. What this veneer that people put around their stories, I recall from a podcast interview that you had a number of months ago with Christine from Firespring. I think that was, and you ladies talked about how, there's sort of a fine line because we feel like fundraising has to be princessy, but we also don't want to get on the other side of that and sort of exploit. So like, what are the most powerful stories in the nonprofit world that you have ever seen? Can you think of a particular example of a story that really resonated with you?
I want to back up for a second because I think the most powerful thing we can do is not tell a story, but receive a story. And one of the things that I really teach people is yes, your nonprofit stories are important, but your first job is to allow people to be seen, heard, and understood, right? That's our first job. So it's not to come in with a story like even if it's a beautiful, authentic one, our first job is to be of value and understand others. And then we can, from that position of trust, we can share a story. There's been a lot over the years. And like, I remember, because I worked at 501 Creative for many, many years. And like, one of the best stories that I just really remember is I worked at the Episcopal City, or I worked with the Episcopal City Mission, which is a St. Louis organization. And they work with kids who are in juvenile detention. They minister to them. And so, and I bring this up because a lot of times you can't always feature or talk about the people in your program. The kids were underage. They couldn't feature or talk about the kids at all. But we talked with the ministers who minister to the kids, and really listen to, like, we like to not define people by the worst thing they've ever done. To like, it was really so much about their kids, and they messed up, and they deserve our empathy, and they deserve our support. And I know that's not like a perfect story. And also, but I remember that because it felt so aligned and so authentic. And it was very respectful of the, it was very respectful and loving to kids that people have a hard time having empathy for. And that are easy to dismiss. And it was like, I've had a lot of really amazing, beautiful experiences. Like, I never went to this facility. I remember the passion of the ministers, the people who minister to the kids, these youth ministers. And I will always carry that feeling. And I think it's like more of a feeling than a specific story, like a feeling that you want to leave people with. And I just remember, like, that was very profound to me. And also, I did an exercise with them that became where we did belief statements. So it's like we were concerned, like, people would have a hard time understanding what this was really about. So we did, here's what we believe, and we did these belief statements. And that exercise that I did with them to sort of share their position now becomes something that I incorporate in a lot of things that I do, is creating these belief statements, both for individuals and for organizations.
I love that. So can you give an example of what a belief statement would be?
One of my beliefs is, I believe that information is free and readily available, and I'll share what I know with anyone, right? Like, information is free, it's fine. That's one of my big beliefs. One of my other big beliefs is like financial integrity. I believe that, like, I don't, like, everyone pays the same, right? Like, I don't give deals because that puts me out of financial integrity. Like, I want to just find an example of a belief statement. So here's one of the, like, we believe all children deserve parents. We believe it benefits everyone when adults with disabilities live and work in our community. We believe every animal deserves a second chance. We believe we must serve those who have served our country. When I work with organizations and we create belief statements, it's sort of like, I call it the floor, the floor, it's the standards. Here's the standards we don't go below. Here's what we believe. It creates like a foundation. And then sometimes I have boards, they'll do it at what we believe, not as an organization, but as a board. Here's what we believe and stand for as leaders of this institution, right? Different than the whole organization. Here's what we believe, our beliefs as leaders of this institution, what we believe. And then I also have, like, individuals do this when they take my influence course. They come up with a set of their own belief statements, which I believe that everyone has these within them. We just don't think about them and put them on paper. When you put them down, it's very powerful, because you're like, whoa, here's what I stand for. And here's my standards, And then in crisis PR, oftentimes, like, do we comment about this or not? Well, let's look at our beliefs. What do our beliefs tell us? Are our beliefs calling us into this conversation? Is there something here that that we feel like because of our beliefs, we want to speak up about.
I love that. I love that. How did you get where you are today? How did you go from a 25-year nonprofit fundraising veteran to now being a consultant and an author and a coach?
Okay, well, I was, this is, my real story. I was an advertising major. I was a journalism major in advertising. My dad was in advertising. That's what I wanted to do. And I didn't really care about selling advertising. As far as like, if you bought Budweiser, you bought Miller. And I saw people like devoting their lives to that. And I always had a lot of social conscience. Like in college, it was the 80s. I was like sleeping in shanties and doing all this stuff. And I realized there was a place that I could merge both my social passion and my skill set. And at the time, like development, fundraising, there was no, how we have all these great programs now at universities and colleges to get into nonprofit. There was nothing like that. I found a career coach, and we're still friends, and I networked and found my way into the nonprofit world. It was like, it wasn't even a choice. It was just something I was called into. And I know you've had that experience as well. And I worked at different agencies for a while, doing marketing, communications, some fundraising. And then I went to 501 Creative for 15 or 16 years. I worked there as, my title was strategist and resident extrovert. So
That's sort of the perfect title.
It is. I did it, and a lot of the concepts of the things that I talk about in my book and that I started my company with are based on helping clients all over the country, so many organizations over the years, really understand who they are and be able to articulate that to current and potential supporters. So I did that for a long time. And you know why I like that job, Joey? Because it was never routine.
Sure.
That's why I stayed there for so long, because it was always some new cause to learn about, new people, to connect with. And that's what kept it awesome.
You know what I love about you is you are such an incredible marketer. And while advertising is something that it might not be your divine purpose or your North Star, you are organically advertising for yourself like crazy. You have a book, a podcast, you're a consultant, you're a coach, how important are these things in this digital age that we live in for nonprofits to be doing? Like, should they be out there constantly creating content and using a book as sort of like instead of a business card, right? Or having ebooks or classes that potential donors can get involved in, or recipients? Like, how important is it to create all these different offerings to invite people into their to sort of leverage those things to invite people into their ecosystem?
All right.
Because that's what you're doing, and you're doing it so well.
I think, and thank you. And yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, like I am an awesome marketer when the intention, is aligned with my spirit, right? Like that's been my thing my whole life. And here's the thing, what you bring up is a great point, because what our nonprofits forget sometimes is they have what I call expert content to offer. Like, what can I teach people? What can I offer people? You know what I'm like about? And like, well, what do we know? Like, okay, you're experts about how, veterans, how to, support veterans. You're experts on how, like Foster Adoptive Care Coalition is experts in managing, teens, what I mean? Rebellious teens. Like you're like people with, who work with like kids with developmental disabilities. They're probably really good at getting the most out of people, or, like there's so many things you can be good at. And if you just create a little bit of this expert content in a lead magnet, without getting too technical, you're that super sexy, sign up for our newsletter. That is not doing it. Give people a little something, what to do when someone on the street asks you for money. Like, like let's say you work with like unhoused people, like, what to do when someone tells you they have cancer, download our guide, something like that. make it super, super simple. You don't have to create a ton of content. And that's the real secret behind what I do. And what I feel like is happening though is you're going to stir up all this energy and it's not really going anywhere. We want to get people off social media and onto your email list, right? Because that's reliable reach. Social media is unreliable reach. We want to build your kingdom, right? Your orbit, like pull people into this orbit. And one of the easiest ways you can do that is offering some kind of expert content or growth opportunity. Like you said, like a class or something where people can come and learn from you. Not only do they get to know you, but now you're demonstrating expertise and thought leadership in whatever arena that you're in. Now, having said that, I have a system and where I create, and this is what I suggest everyone do, and I have a whole podcast on this, and I do workshops on it. I do one awesome story a week. That's it. I tell one story, one story, and I just leverage the crap out of it, right? The one awesome story becomes my podcast. It becomes a YouTube video. It becomes a LinkedIn newsletter. It becomes a blog post. It becomes the subject of my email. And it becomes all my social media posts for the week. But it's just, all you have to do is tell one story a week. And one more thing, video. I think nonprofits are very behind the ball at how they use the video. You know, not like produced video. Just turn on your phone and tell me a story. Turn on your phone, tell me a story. Short form video, like a TikTok or a reel or a story. Just tell me the truth. And the more gritty it is, the better. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be, but just tell me one story a week. These email with the newsletter style with like the 4 or 5 stories, people can't absorb that. So what I would recommend, one story one time a week, one email. So maybe if you have you're mailing monthly and you have 4 stories, mail once a week and just pick one story. Just one awesome story a week. That's all you have to tell. And then you can comment and massage, and you could create all the different ways to tell that one story. You know what I mean? Informational, educational, entertaining, however you want to tell it. But it's just like, what's the most important thing we're going to share this week? And that's why my email is good, because I'm telling one awesome story and that's it. And I just make sure it has value to people. So it's not like, hey, we're so great about this. It's like, what can I share with you that will give you some value? Because when we're of value to others, they'll be of value to us. So it's less about, hey, we're so amazing and we're so awesome. It's like, it's more about like, how can I be of service to you today? What can I share with you? Like I had somebody on my podcast, well, our mutual friend, Michael, who does these tax credits. I have what is it called? Economic Recovery Credit, ERC. And he helps nonprofits get the ERC. I said, come on my podcast. He said, sure. And he's getting people money. That does nothing. That's just a value, right? Like that'll all come back to me. I just have to be a value. I did have somebody enroll in my course because she said, thank you for connecting me to Michael. We're getting some funds. I'm like, would you be interested in investing some of those funds in a leadership and communications training?
You're investing back into yourself.
She was like, absolutely. I said, okay. So
that's fantastic.
It'll come back. But you see what I'm saying? Like it's really, I do this. I put out all this stuff every week. I do have a podcast team and I do have a VA, but it's a lot less money and less time than you think. And because we're repurposing that one piece of content throughout, instead of like, oh, I'm going to make this article for the website, this piece of content here, this piece of content here, like really focus, because no one can really absorb anything more than one story a week anyway. So
that is something that is so amazing. And we went to our nonprofits and we said, listen, where's the area, like, where are the gaps right now? Like, where are you feeling the biggest struggle, the biggest challenge, the biggest growth opportunity? And all of them said in telling our stories. And so we're taking kind of the agency approach to this, Maryanne, and I think you'll really appreciate it. It's very much about how do we get creative about telling those stories and leverage our content so it can go further faster.
Yeah. Instead
of continuing to try and create an expensive, long form piece of content every month. It's how do we do quicker, short form pieces of content, leveraging the stories that are already there And just like here's an example. We're working with an organization to produce. Are you familiar with John Krasinski's Some Great News?
Yeah.
So we're doing a newsletter based on Some Great News and filming the entire thing and blasting it out quarterly. So and the recipients are the newscasters. The recipients of the organization are telling the story about how they are benefiting and offering, services to the community through this organization. And, it's just, we're trying to be different to provide organizations these incredible assets that can help tell their stories and then ultimately invite people into their, into that ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we can continue to offer them various things.
I want to share a little case study of an organization because I feel like they are really walking the walk when it comes to transparent, authentic, aligned storytelling. And so it's the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. And if anybody knows, sisters are the badasses of the Catholic Church, right? They have no power, so they constantly stir the pot. And they often, minister and serve the most marginalized people and stand up for those people. And for the sisters right now, that's people at the border, children and families at the border, and LGBTQ plus IA community, especially trans kids. My oldest kid's trans, so I'm all down with this. And now some of what they do may not actually align with the teachings of the church, which everyone gets, right? And also what we found is that maybe the communications was sort of downplaying some of these things because they didn't want to make the more traditional donor upset. I get it, right? And they also knew that they were missing the story. And I love the team here because they did the inner work and the outer work on this. Because being aligned and authentic, being able to just turn on your phone and tell a little story means like you have done some work in being open, transparent, vulnerable, not perfect, right? You know what? And telling the true story. And two of the folks took my training as individuals, and then I was working with the organization. And we came up with 3 words to describe the sisters: bold, fearless, and funny. And we said, look at our marketing. Is it saying bold, fearless, and funny? How can we really step into and embody bold, fearless, and funny? And okay, we're going to tell the truth about who we are and what we do. And it was scary. It was scary. And they were ready for it. The praise and criticism piece, right? They were ready for it. They knew they were going to disappoint some people, and that was okay. And they also knew that there are a lot of people in the St. Louis community that we share who are looking for a place where they can see their values reflected back to them, a faith home. And oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe so they do this magazine, and they made the trans program that they have where they minister to trans kids, like the cover story. And it was also like in the Catholic Review. I mean, this was big, okay? And it went over huge. The sisters love seeing it. The people are inspired. There's so much renewed energy because people are excited about the work they're doing, and they feel like they can finally be who they are. They did disappoint a couple people, not as many as you would think. A couple people were like, yeah, that's like, no, we completely understand. We want you to be happy where your gift's going to. And with bless and release, it's okay. I couldn't just go in there and say, here's your new tagline, right? And they're like, because it would have never worked because they weren't ready to step into that kind of visibility. And so by doing the inner work, one of the people on the team, she's kind of a pleaser. And we worked on standing in her value. We worked on all of these things so that when it came time for that, that male piece to go out, like they knew that they were doing the right thing, and they knew it came from a place of authenticity and alignment and transparency. And they knew that even though it was scary, it was going to be okay. And I think when I see organizations that don't market in the way they want to, it's not because they don't have the right words. It's not because they don't have just the right tagline. It's because there's something inside them that's playing small, that's afraid to speak the truth. So if we can tap into that and really embrace that and work through that, step into that next level of leadership and ascension, and then from that place tell the true story, then people are like, whew. And that's what the sisters are feeling now, is this this new renewed energy and new people coming into this organization like, oh my God, this is amazing. And thank you for being authentic. Thank you for being vulnerable. And because that's what it's been for me, an amazing thing to witness. And in fact, I had Jenny Beatrice, who's one of the team members in this organization, on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, just talking about this experience. Because like I said earlier, what I thought a long time ago, okay, if we just had the right tagline or right messaging, everybody inside would feel so much better and be able to communicate more effectively. But it's actually the opposite. When everything comes from the individual, especially that ED or that CEO, that leader, because they set the tone, they set the culture. And then from that place, then you share that message, and that's what's going to bring people in. Because sooner or later, they're going to realize if the message and the culture aren't aligned, people are going to figure that out, right? If we keep telling lies about ourselves, someone's going to figure out eventually, wait, you said you were this, but you're actually this, huh? And that's where the mistrust comes in. So that's one of my favorite stories of really understanding how it's not about the words, and I'm a person who loves words that you have. It's about the story that you tell yourself and the thoughts. Like we talked about the monkey mind, and right, how I value myself. That's going to make me a better marketer when I start there than starting with, oh, we need messages. We need, you talking. Yeah, we'll get to the talking points. We're going to get there. Here's where we're going to start.
So to summarize, it sounds like first, we need to get clear about who we're trying to market to. Once we have a solid understanding of who we're trying to market to, and a precursor to that is having the appropriate messaging, because the reality is we don't have the marketing budget for everybody. So we've got to get our messaging correctly, right? We have to find people that care about us. That's I think that's one of the questions that I'd love to unpack too, is how do we find those people that care about us? And then once we find those people that care about us, we have to invite them into some type of call to action. And I'd say the majority of the nonprofits that we know, and I'd say the majority of the nonprofits anywhere, they're going to invite them to an event of some sort, whether that's a small event, a volunteering opportunity, a gala, a fundraiser. And that's kind of the opportunity right there to start to begin the relationship. What other steps are there? So first it's, branding, mantra, understanding who those people are that will care about us, inviting them into our ecosystem. I think, and then the fourth step is asking them for their money, right? The generosity. Why is it awkward? Why is that fourth step always super awkward?
We can talk about audiences, but let's talk about why. I call it the trifecta. Okay, it's the vulnerability of asking for help. It's money, which is a trigger, and it's the possibility of rejection. And those three things are those are the three biggest triggers that we have, and we put them all together and call it fundraising. And it can be very awkward for people. And also the main thing is it just doesn't feel fair. I give the company jewelry or money, and I get the earrings. That's a transaction. Sometimes fundraising, you're going to give me $10,000 and I'm going to give you a thank you and a good feeling. How is that fair? We're using the rules we play for one game in another game, and so when fundraising is a gift, philanthropy is a gift, because it allows people to align their assets to their highest values. So fundraising is not asking to give money. It's asking someone to step into a higher and better version of themselves and to align their assets with their highest goals and ideals. And one of my biggest things that I teach is you cannot make people care about your organization. Stop trying to make people care. You cannot make people care. We all have our own philanthropic heart. It's what's born into us, like every other childhood experience. And what makes you like or can feel connected to one organization over another isn't their messaging. Like that's one part of it. It's like, it's that emotional connection. It like I can, because that emotional connection is born of the experiences of our life, right? And so, yeah, not that people who are helping folks with diabetes doesn't have value. That just doesn't speak to my heart. And you can't really change what's in people's philanthropic heart. And that's what makes fundraising and marketing hard, is we're trying to change people. Like, I want you to change who you are so you'll be more suitable to me. No, I get to love you for who you are. Our pain comes from the gap between who people are and who we want them to be. So if we love people for who they are, not who we want them to be, then we can say, hey, you're not my person. That's totally cool. I don't need you to be that person. I'm just looking for like-minded people who are out here and want to see create the same vision that I am. And so what can make fun marketing hard is when we're trying to convince people to care, because we can't. So we get frustrated and we stop. And we want, and we're asking people for money who really aren't invested in our cause because we're afraid, because like, well, where am I going to find the other person? So and the scarcity mentality may get the best of us. And I don't want to let that donor go, because that was a big thing with the sisters. What if we let these donors go? Where's the other money going to come from? Well, it'll be there, it'll be there. And it'll be more aligned donors who want that long-term relationship. So in that, for me, is why it's, if we're trying to make people care, we will be frustrated. If we're looking for like-minded people and inviting them into a community, that's a lot easier. That even just saying it feels so much better.
I love it. You're not asking, you're providing an invitation.
You're providing an invitation. And my friend Amy Fazio says, people come for the cause, they stay for the community.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Isn't that amazing?
I found that we say the same thing in a group that I'm involved in called Exchange Approach. I wonder if she's involved in that. Anyway, continue.
So when they, so after that first gift, it's about the community that you create, how connected they feel, not just to the organization, but to each other. Yeah. They feel part of a community, part of something greater than themselves. Like, one of the things I use a lot is Tony Robbins' the 6 human needs. And, I'm kind of on the fence about Tony, but I like this thing. And the top 2 human needs are growth and contribution. So loving the top, there's the 3 bottom ones are security or certainty. And then the second one is variety. So we want food. We don't eat the same thing every day. And then ego, significance. And I feel like that's what most fundraising is, certainty, a little bit of variety. We do the same event every year, do it a little differently, and we'll put your name on the thing. What you can really set you above is that connection, growth, and contribution. To contribute is our highest order of need. So the ability to give back or to create, that means people stepping into their highest and best self. And by love and connection means just, feeling love and connected to something other than ourselves. And then growth is, what are the growth opportunities, and contribution. People say to me, I don't know, my board's just not engaged. I'm like, well, let's bust this out. How many of these needs are you fulfilling? Because if you can fulfill all 6, that is going to be a relationship that they will value. They don't make time. They say they don't have time. That's because they don't value it. Why don't they value it? Because maybe you're not giving them opportunities for growth. Maybe they don't have opportunities to feel connected. So, but, like growth opportunities would be, like a lunch and learn, like Foster Adoptive Care Coalition. Like, I was on their board, so I know other programs. They do these lunch and learns every month. Every November, they have this bus and they put all the board members and anybody we want to invite on this bus and they take us to different agencies and they show us what it's like to navigate the foster care system. It's very powerful. That's a growth opportunity, connection opportunity. You don't think we're going to be talking all day long, getting to know each other, going through this emotional experience, then an opportunity for contribution as far as you're probably not even going to ask me to up my gift after that experience because I am going to want to give more because I already feel more love and connection. And so it's not, we see fundraising as I'm taking something from someone, and it's actually nothing makes us feel better than to give back. And even in a small way, even just by like maybe sharing your story, like maybe say you've been through a program, they want to share and they're excited to share the story because they get to give back. And they may not even ever been in a position before in their lives where they've been able to like really give back. So it can be very powerful.
Yeah. So just kind of going back to your initial statement, what I'm hearing is stop fighting the objections, stop fighting the no's, go out and find more yeses. And in order to find more yeses, you have to, again, give up being perfect for being authentic.
We have to be willing to hear a no before we're going to hear a yes, 100%, right? And these are what I call fantasy relationships. So let's say you have a connection with someone, maybe you've exchanged emails or had a meeting, and they're like, well, send me something over or in writing and I'll think about it. I would say 95% of the time, I don't have stats on this, but that is they just don't want to say no to your face, right? They're embarrassed. And you now wanting to hear no go, okay, they're going to think about it. Yay. And then you follow up and you follow up and you follow up. Well, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know. And you're giving your power away left and right. They weren't going to give, but we couldn't, if we, like having that conversation in the moment, hey, allowing them, if this isn't for you, that's totally okay. I'm like, here's a secret. The less likely you want somebody to do something, the more likely they'll do it. So the more power of choice you give over someone else, the more likely they'll choose what you want. So the more you push something on someone, the more likely they are to not do it. But if you say, hey, whatever you decide is totally okay. I'm open to whatever you want to do. They're more likely to do what you want. That's a secret. Now I've done it. I just told everyone. So we don't have to pitch. We don't have to sell. We don't have to convince because that makes us feel weird. That's what makes fundraising hard. We don't have to do that. All you have to do is like listen to see, witness, and receive people for who they are and honor that. And if that means, hey, let's continue the conversation. This feels like a fit. Do it. If that means so great to meet you, doesn't feel like a fit, and glad we connected. Can I keep you on my mailing list? Then we're good. Or maybe not even that. And if they say, no, I'm okay, then that's okay too. It's so much easier doing it that way. And this is how I run my business too. I don't convince, I don't pitch, I don't sell. I am just a value to people. And if they feel called to connect with me, I will do that. If I feel like they're a good fit for what I do, we can talk about it, but whatever they decide is totally okay. Because that's what works. And when people feel like no one wants to be sold to, they love to buy, but they hate to sell, or people hate to be sold to, but they love to buy. So the more and so you don't really have to pitch it. You have to listen to people. And if it feels aligned and it feels right, and I have a whole system of how I do this, you say, hey, maybe let's talk about what that would look like. And it's a much less stressful way that really honors everyone involved, because I think that's what kind of makes fundraising uncomfortable, because we just don't feel like I said, rejected or pushy. Like, we don't want to push anything on people. We don't want to ask the wrong person for something. And I get that. So in this system that I teach, it kind of takes all of that away.
Maryanne, when have you, you mentioned a minute ago that, people come for the content or the cause, but they come back for the community. And I love that. That resonates so deeply with me.
Me too.
So deeply. And it's like, the content is great, we talk about a 3C model. So it's kind of, it's a triangle. Content is the first part of the triangle. Then you've got social capital, and then you've got communal capital. And the communal capital is what we're trying to get to. And so when we produce an event of any gathering of any kind for any organization, we always try to get them, like you said, get out of the formulaic, here's how we've done things in the past, and let's get right down into the nitty-gritty communal capital. What are the highest aspirations and goals, life goals for the people in the seats? And how can we help them actualize it through the work that we're doing through this event? Otherwise, it's just a wasted event effort, right? It's just an expense. The event has to begin a relationship. So I'm curious, any events that you have been to that really stick with you as an exceptional learning experience? And what did you learn from those events? And the reason I ask this is because I think in 30 years of fundraising, you've probably had some incredible learning experiences at different nonprofit organizations. I'm wondering if, what did you learn?
So what came to mind first was all the ones that didn't work. So I just want to get that out of the way really quick, which is to go to a luncheon and to not have all program time, not have any time to even talk to the people at your table, like that kind of thing. I think the tendency is to overpack our experiences,
making it program heavy
with content, instead of just allowing this, because we feel like, oh, people paid all this money, we got to give them all this stuff. Allowing an event to breathe. See what I'm saying? Like space to connect, time, you don't have to like because right, we want people to connect because that gives value. I keep bringing them up, but they're just so good at it. The Foster Adoptive Care Coalition a few years back had the big fundraiser, and they ditched it, and we did a fundraiser, but it was so much different and so much better because it was it was sort of a typical fundraiser, and yet it wasn't, because there was no tables, there was no formal thing. We just got to hang out, and people like, oh, what are you going to do? Just hang out. It was actually so fun. But there's another one. I did this, but I thought this one was hilarious because it was a lip sync battle. My friend Laura's like, do you want to be a backup dancer in my lip sync channel? I'm like, sure. It was fun. It was different. It was like, I'm wondering how it fits into your 3Cs. But it was, and they raised money, and we had a blast, and there was still a ton of time to connect with people, right? Before and after the show. And then there was like a DJ after the show. It was a lovely experience. And, was it profoundly moving and meaningful? No. Was it super fun? Yes. Did everybody remember it? Absolutely. I still remember the people I met there. I remember everything about it. And I want to share a story because this just came through many, many, many years ago. I went to a workshop, and it was on Martin Luther King Day. And this was probably like 2005. And it was at WashU, and it was this guy, and he talked about race and race in our culture. And this was a long time ago. I had one little Black kid at the time, but I remember, I'm not telling anybody I have Black kids. I'm saying, I'm not going to sit here. Well, you know me, by the end of it, I'm on stage, sharing my story. So he had all the Black people get on stage and talk about how racism had impacted their life. And I had never heard stories like this before. And then all the white people got on stage, and they talked about how they perpetuated racism in their life. And it was like, I still remember leaving that, like crying and like hugging people. And because this is what I call the sacred space for us to witness these things in each other and have this really remarkable conversation. And that's why facilitation of these experiences is, like, and the kind of facilitation that I do is so important, because it gives people permission to be vulnerable. It gives people permission. And I remember this guy told his story first, right? So like you have to open up yourself first if you want other people to open up. I can't say, I'm just going to sit here and be comfortable. I want you to be, vulnerable. Like good leaders go first. And he set the stage and made it okay for the rest of us then to share our truth. And at the end, I did share that I had a kid. And a lot of people came up to me after that. And we're like with different resources and connections and things. And I feel like what we call like Joe Dispenza talks about, emotion and experience create a memory. So what is emotional about it? What is, so we have to have emotion and experience, and that creates a memory. So if in that intersection is a memory. So is the event like what is memorable? My dad was an amazing entertainer. He taught me to entertain. He said, always give them enough to eat, enough to drink, and something unexpected that they remember. That's what we do every time. Something to eat, something to drink. There's always my family shows love and production values. But we that's just like how but it is give them plenty to eat, can we drink, and what's unexpected, what are they going to remember, what was different or special about this, what really touched them. And it it doesn't have to be always in an emotional a moving way. It can be funny, it can be like in the lip sync, I just laughed and laughed and laughed at these people doing lip sync battles, and how much energy and work everybody put into their numbers. And it was, so what's memorable? What are they going to walk away with and go home and then tell their friends about? Oh my God, I can't believe this, even a trivia night, which are so popular around here. Like how can you make that memorable?
Maryanne, I think you've just brought up some of the most important points, if not the most important point of our conversation. It's that meetings, retreats, conferences, and summits, and you said it a minute ago, to leave people time to breathe during events when you're workshopping, that's so incredibly important. And one of the things we talk about is maybe now in this time of, the time of when the demands placed on us in society exceed our ability to adapt and evolve to those demands, maybe now it's not about one person having all the answers, being the sage on the stage, the keynote, if you will, the Tony Robbins that has the answer. So maybe it's not about the sage on the stage, one person having all the answers, but about asking the right questions and unlocking collective resourcefulness. And I think about I think workshops are way underutilized. How can you unlock collective resourcefulness, shared identity, and co-create this powerful space to build capacity for your organization by just putting your donors and your board members and your recipients in a room together and having a facilitated workshop where they can co-create the future of your organization. And you start by asking them what matters most to them.
I love, yeah.
I mean, that's
what's your goal? What's your gain? What's the vision? And that's one of the things I've been working with a lot is the idea of, instead of telling our story by what we don't want to have happen, right? What do we want to have happen, right? What's the opposite of that? So if we want to end homelessness, that's a noble mission, but what do we want to have on the other side of that? What kind of community would we have if we didn't have, if there was no homelessness, and building our vision from what we want to create instead of what we don't want to create. And how much more like what kind of community would that be, where everyone has a home and circles of support. And I don't know, because when we think about, if you put all those people in the room and say, what kind of future do we want? What's the vision that we have? And collapse that hierarchy, right? The board, the staff, the donors, just let's sit around the table and solve and let's create from that space. How amazing would that be? And how much more engaged and those donors would be of having that that experience,
Absolutely. Real lived experience, the intersection between experience and emotion. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Maryanne, just, kind of moving on to rapid fire questions. This is a question that you asked me on your podcast, and I loved it. I'm going to steal it from you and ask it to you.
You please do.
I feel that, and I think you feel the same way, that people are often afraid of feeling joy. And they mistakenly believe that feeling joy and fully expressing how happy they are is boastful or arrogant. And I think that's BS, because I truly feel that leaders who don't fully experience joy are dangerous because they don't allow the proper time to appreciate their achievements and offer self-love.
Yeah.
And so right now you have the freedom to brag on your latest accomplishments without any judgment. What accomplishment are you most proud of right now in your life?
Okay. Well, first I want to say this. I hear what you say about experiencing joy. In fact, in the group, after people take my course, I have a year-long program, and every month we have a different topic. And this month it's receptivity, and one of my people, she said she goes on these client meetings to donors and she's having so much fun. And she's like, but I have coworkers back at the office, like slaving at the computer. And it's hard for her to fully receive the joy of this because there's the guilt, right? Like I'm doing too much. And so fully like receptivity, like the ability to receive everything around us. It's so important. Okay. Now do you understand what I'm saying? Like, receiving
100%.
the full joy of your work. Like, so that's what we're working on this month. Okay. And so what I'm most proud of right now, I'm just going to say right now in the moment, we've had my son, I have 3 kids. My middle son's had a lot of struggles over more than the last year. And, I don't know, maybe this is his brag, not mine. I've learned so much from his experience and about managing conflict, about, boundary setting and all of these things. You know what, this is his experience. So I'm just going to say he started playing football last week and it's really been a shift for him. And I feel like that's most proud of in my life right now. Now I'm saying it, I'm like, but really, that's his story. That's not my story. But I can feel his shift and I feel some pride that I feel like I was a part of that. Then also that was really his shift. But the other thing that I'm most proud of, I think, is I decided I typically run my course 4 times a year. I was going to do it in November, but we're going on vacation. With that and Thanksgiving wasn't going to work. Moving it to October, decided I'm not doing it. It felt heavy. It wasn't energy rich. I'm like, I am taking the fall and I am going to retool and up level my class. Like I was so proud that I decided to not do something, to listen to my intuition, because you feel like, oh no, but I said I was going to do it. I wasn't enrolling anyone. Like it was fine. It felt so heavy. And I'm like, well, how am I going to make income? I've already enrolled 3 people into my February course. But I was so proud to make the decision to power down a little bit and to take some time to, up level and the course. And it took a little bit. Like I almost did it this one time. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. And then I'm like, and as soon as I said, I'm not going to do it, I was like, oh, the weight and taking off my calendar felt so good. And there's like one person who was thinking about doing it and she, and then she's happy, it was fine. So I'm just really excited for, I was just really excited to be able to just say no. Cause we're achievers. It's kind of what we do, like saying no to something and being like, wow, that felt really good. Like listening to my intuition and not feeling and allowing for the feeling of scarcity to come through me. Oh my God. And then also doing it anyway.
I love that. Yeah. And sometimes when we take a step back and we go inward, it allows us to scale more rapidly outward. So you have my full support.
Thank you. And that's exactly what happened. Once my energy shifted, because energy is everything. We call it frequency first, right? Once my energy shifted, then I got excited about February, the February course. and releasing the October, it was like, and then people just started dropping in.
That's awesome, Maryanne.
Yeah,
That's
because
awesome.
it is like energy is everything. And we're very, very smart. Our brains are very smart and they read energy really quickly. 80% of communication is not spoken. We're always talking about, what am I going to say the wrong thing? It's how you show up. It's how you show up.
Lightning round here. Explain in one sentence or just a few words your thoughts on this platform for a nonprofit organization. Facebook.
Unreliable and dying.
Instagram.
I don't use it, so I don't know.
TikTok.
The future, everybody should get on it. I am too. We'll do it together.
LinkedIn.
Better and is much more amenable to short video, just like more like a TikTok thing. So video, get comfortable with video. That's Love the it. Biggest thing. If you're not, find somebody who is. That's our main form of storytelling right now, is this 2 to 3 minute videos. And
yeah, reach out to us. Like, I'll do a shameless plug right here. If you're struggling or you're challenged with creating content, reach out to Utopia Experience. We will help you. It's literally all we do.
Right. Like learn the skills that you need to, because the way that you've been telling a story before, it's like, is that how you would want to receive the story? Is that how you're spending your time scrolling? Probably not. I really feel like LinkedIn has cleaned up a little bit. So I spend the majority of my time on LinkedIn and on TikTok. I'm gonna tell you this, true story, you can look it up. The most viewed, because I got it right at trivia, I was the only one who did. The most viewed website in 2021 was not Google, it was TikTok.
You want to know something interesting? And then I'll go back to the lightning round is TikTok is now indexing on Google. So if you're posting videos on TikTok and putting SEO in there and people are searching on Google, they can come across your videos now.
Wow. Okay.
That's pretty interesting. We don't have a TikTok strategy yet, but these podcasts are going to be broken up into short form video content that is going to become our TikTok strategy.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's my next wave. So my next ascension of this, what I call the hourglass content model, where I tell you one awesome story a week, is to take those videos and then break it down. And I'm working with somebody right now who's gonna help me do that. Because that is kind of the next thing for me too. Yeah. All right.
How do you feel about YouTube?
I think it's also important. If I was going to be anywhere, it depends on where your people are, right? Like if your people are on Instagram, I think, so I didn't answer the question. YouTube's fine. YouTube's also a search engine. So that's what makes it also powerful, because people will go on YouTube and search. So, making sure you have those keywords and your SEO done on YouTube is important.
Direct mail.
I don't know. I don't know.
And perhaps your favorite, email.
Love it. Perfect. Awesome. Email one time a week with one story a week. That's all you need to do. I think it is very underutilized, and I think people just grow their list and they don't really know, but those are here's what I think. This is rapid fire, so I'm going to go fast. I think people spend a lot of time and energy trying to stir up new people on social media, when you could take some of that energy and just develop and refine your list and really love in on those people, because those are your warm leads. Those are people who've said, hey, we're interested, and just giving them value and giving them great stuff.
What's one thing that that if an organization does this, they'll go further and faster?
You're only going to go as far and as fast as a leader believes that you can. So for me, it's about the CEO or the executive director of that organization. When they ascend, when they go to the next level, because this is what I do for people, everybody else just comes with them. They either come with them or they fall away. And so if you want to grow, it starts with you. And then get a lead magnet. Because here's why I keep harping on. It's not harping. It's free. It's cheap. It's easy. Every single person here who's listening has a website with the technology to do this. Create that pop-up window. Hey, put your address in here and we'll give you this little guide to something. That's how you grow your email list. That's how you grow, because when you want to get people off of social media and onto your email list.
Last question is, what is something that every nonprofit should be doing right now following this podcast? What's something they should start doing?
Just create a lead magnet.
Yeah.
It's you go on Canva, make a little thing. You don't even have to hire anybody to do it. Make a little thing, just something nice to entice people to like that. They'll give you their email. You say thank you, give them the little download, and you put them on the list. Because if you're driving people to your website, you want to make sure that you capture their email when they're on your website. And then I would say the second thing is, if you're emailing monthly or quarterly, if you're mailing, move to monthly, but you really want to get into the once a week. That's your best job.
Any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
You're doing a great job. You're amazing. And, if no one has told you yet today, you're awesome. And when the more aligned and authentic and transparent you can be, the more people will gravitate towards you. And you will become a magnet. And I guess the biggest thing is like what you put out there is what you get back. So if you put out calm confidence, if I teach people I'm the queen, right? Like that's what I get back. If I put out rush, dis-ease, scarcity, that's what I get back. So when you manage your energy, everything else will follow.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maryanne. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Well, you if you want to, I have a cool little lead magnet. You just go to nonprofitleadershipguide.com, and I have my Uplevel Your Influence Starter Kit. So I have this really cool ebook. It's called Stop Sitting Back and Start Making Change. It's a lot of the stuff I teach and talk about is in that ebook. And remember, Joey, I said I have a whole methodology for how to have these conversations. I actually have a template in there for exactly how to have what I call a courageous conversation in fundraising, where you can have that more honest and open dialogue, and exactly how to listen, how to do the whole thing. And I even give you some language to use to play around with. And so that's the best way. And courageouscommunication.com, that's the other way. But nonprofitleadershipguide.com, you can go in there and check me out on the Influential Nonprofit.
Absolutely. Go check out Maryanne's podcast. And Maryanne, it's been a privilege and an honor. We'll make sure to link all of that too in the show notes so people have access to your resources. And really appreciate it, folks. Hey, Maryanne Dersch.
I want to say it's amazing how we did meet, because we met because, I think we would have met eventually, but this is why people come into your universe, right? Like you came into my orbit and because of the stuff that I put out there. So you just keep putting your stuff out there. And thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. We could do a whole series. This is
I love it. I absolutely love it. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and really excited. I hope this serves many, many hearts and souls that might need this wisdom, this knowledge that you were dropping today. So thank you so much for joining me. Hey, if this episode was valuable to you, then share it with someone that you love, someone that you know that could benefit from it. Also, be sure to subscribe, and depending on how you're listening, go ahead and leave a comment or review. This will help ensure that we are connecting with other nonprofit leaders so that we can get this critical information out to them. And if your company is in the early or even late stages of putting on an event, go to our website, utopiaexperience.com, and click the Book Us tab and schedule a free discovery call to see if our services would be a right fit for your event. And even if they're not, that's okay. I promise you our expertise can steer you in the right direction, so you'll get value either way. Thanks for listening to the Impact Roadmap, and we'll see you next time.